So Microsoft just did a half-an-hour long presentation about OneDrive 3.0. So we're going to dive into what that looks like and a bit of the nuances that Microsoft might not have said in their gambit. I'm Gavin Jones, founder and director at MeTime, where we help make your employees' lives easier, getting the most out of Microsoft Teams, Microsoft 365, and getting ready for Microsoft Copilot. If you're interested in working together, then stick around until the end to find out more. This is the new OneDrive. Welcome to OneDrive 3.0. Oh, hang on. My mistake. This is the new OneDrive. Welcome to OneDrive 3.0. So I was surprised Microsoft did a half-an-hour segment on the new OneDrive because they've been updating it a little bit in the interim anyway, and if this is 3.0, then surely the last version must have been 2.99999 because we've already had some of the things that Microsoft were talking about in their presentation available already, and then the latest version that is now available online seems to be rounded corners and it generally looking a little bit nicer. Let me know in the comments below if anyone else, like me, just thinks Microsoft should make the UI look like it does in their show reels with like the glass bit and 3D elements. I think that looks pretty cool. And clearly Microsoft do, because that's what they use in all their marketing materials. So it'd be cool if they just went with that UI, I think. But anyway, we've got new videos coming out every Tuesday, so make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified every time one of those comes out about using Microsoft at work more effectively. I think Microsoft still struggle with marketing OneDrive. Certainly a lot of the companies and clients I work with, to help them be more efficient at work and make their employees' lives easier and get the most out of Microsoft. Normal people doing normal jobs in those organizations still struggle with what's OneDrive, what's SharePoint, what's Teams. Microsoft are not really very clear the difference between those and when you should use one and one the other. Now, it's not amazingly complicated once you get your head around it, I don't think. However, Microsoft do not do a good job of onboarding people in what to use when, and to be honest, I don't think they care that much because they just make things available, and however people use them is up to them. Seems to be the general gist. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, I think the opportunity for Microsoft is to just be a bit more Apple. So having a really pointed view on, like, well, what is the entry point for someone coming in to do their work? Should they go to Teams first? Should they go to SharePoint, the new bit of SharePoint, the intranet? Should they come into OneDrive? Should they come into the Microsoft 365 feed? So I think it's a shame that a lot of people won't see some of these benefits of the new OneDrive, and we'll go through what they are in a second, because to the nearest round number, from organisations I work with and organisations I've worked with in the past, 0 people come onto the online bit of OneDrive to get access to their files. They just don't. Most people are using OneDrive like Sync, and I'll go briefly through the different nuances of what OneDrive is to different people shortly as well. But I was surprised what Microsoft did a big thing about OneDrive 3.0. One, because it's not that huge a jump. And 2, because very, very recently, they also updated the Microsoft 365 feed. So from office.com, although it still says office.com in the URL, it's now supposed to be Microsoft365.com. This seems like the most likely entry point that Microsoft would want you to use to get access to their ecosystem. So it's supposed to give you some recommended documents, pages, recordings at the top. Annoyingly, it doesn't scroll with a trackpad. You have to click these buttons to go across, which I think is a bit more clunky than it could be. And then quick access to all recently opened shared stuff, so you can get access to quite a lot of things. And then Microsoft have been sort of talking up their Microsoft 365 feed, which is like a feed of information of stuff that you may want to go back to. So stuff that it thinks is for you, like you recently opened this, you're working on this, someone else shared this with you. Stay on top of things that are going on, meeting insights, so it's got a bit of intelligent recap in there if you've got that, which we've been through before in this video, which is really annoying because you can't actually get back to the recap through Stream and it doesn't open it in Teams. Stuff from your network, so things that have been shared with you, and news, which I don't have any in my tenant right now, but it would show me some news stories. So it seems like that is the entry point that people could go through to get access to all the things that they're likely to need in their working day. This isn't integrated into Teams though. So Microsoft did a big push of like, you can get all of your work done in Teams, and that's mostly what I do with clients, because if you can get people working out in the open in Teams, it makes everything else easier or irrelevant if you use it correctly. And if you want to find out more, stick around to the end about how we could work together. But this is a shame, because Microsoft 365 Feed is doing lots of stuff, but then is incomplete. So we've got My Content, which still doesn't open OneDrive. So it's got all, doesn't have those tiles at the top anymore. It's got recently opened shared favorites and browsed by people and meetings, which will come to in the new OneDrive, which looks similar but slightly different than the new OneDrive, but gets you the same stuff. There is no OneDrive app link in Microsoft 365, whether we use the web version, which I'm using right now, or the Windows desktop app, which, again, not sure many people are using to be there to get access to the stuff they need to do. So usually people work in Outlook or in Teams or a bit of both, and we've got links to those there. Now, in the new Outlook in Windows, it does have a link into OneDrive, but it just forces you to open it into the web browser rather than going into files. And so thus is the issue, that when is someone going to come into the web version of OneDrive to see all the new benefits of being able to get access to the files that it thinks that you want access to? It's not really clear why someone would open this unless they've watched this video. But if you're watching this video, I would say probably more interested in tech than 90% of the people that are doing normal jobs that just don't have time to catch up with stuff and the latest innovations and just do their job the way that they've always done it, which is what help organizations change. However, the status quo persists. So OneDrive briefly started as something really clear. Microsoft borrowing concepts from Dropbox, where stuff that's in your documents gets synced to the cloud and you get access to all those files wherever you are. So if you're on your own computer, you go through File Explorer if you're on Windows, or Finder if you're on a Mac, and whatever you do to that file stays in sync, and it always just gets synced back up to the cloud whenever you make any changes. If you then go onto your mobile phone or onto a different device or a different place that you're working without your own computer, you can then get access to all those files because they're in the cloud, and then you may use either the web version of OneDrive to get access to those files, or you might use a mobile app or an iPad app to get access to those files, and they all stay in sync and they're all available on the cloud. That seemed at the time was pretty easy to understand, and OneDrive is your own place where your files live and no one else has got access to them unless you give them access. So then the next concept is you can share files or entire folders from your OneDrive to someone else because they all live in the cloud, and it's just opening up access to someone, open to anyone that's got the link. You can access it to certain people, you can stop them downloading it, you can have them read only rather than edit, and you can put a time limit on when to share stuff. So that was cool. But then because Microsoft have got a lot of baggage and they're trying to keep up with all the different apps in the marketplace and different concepts, they're the only large company that has a different place to store documents that are shared with everybody. So SharePoint is the place where you put and work on files, where if you put it in there, you know that everybody's got access to that file. It's not just your own little place anymore. This is the place where anyone can get access to it. And when I say anyone, it's anyone that's invited to that SharePoint site, essentially. So when people used to work on old shared drives, on-premise shared drives, I guess people were used to like, this is the server and this is where people can get access to stuff. Whoever needs access to it can get it, and I'll work on my own little place on my documents until it's ready to go in there. It's usually how people worked. Now I've got OneDrive, which syncs everything in my documents anyway, so that's all available on the cloud. And I've got SharePoint, and everything I put in there is all available in the cloud as well. And then to complicate it a little bit, then the OneDrive app syncs stuff on your computer from your own OneDrive, and the ability to sync stuff from SharePoint. So whether it's shared and it sort of syncs to your own desktop so you can work on it offline and it gets synced back up to SharePoint, or whether you do that in OneDrive, which is only where you go, the OneDrive app still syncs both of those things to your computer. Then Microsoft introduced Teams, which when you set up a team, it sets up a SharePoint site. So any files you put in Teams, in the Teams bit of Teams, live in SharePoint, or a different SharePoint site than the one that you set up if you set up a separate SharePoint site, which is getting confusing and why people get confused about it. Because if you had an old SharePoint site and put the file in Teams, you've now got two different versions of the same file, unless you link it, because then Microsoft brought out we can link that SharePoint site to your team. Unless begins the confusion, because then Microsoft have got OneDrive app, which shows access and files from wherever you save them in the Microsoft ecosystem. So it's trying to be useful. So whether you've got your own files in your own OneDrive, which is My Files, which looks like, as you would set up your own My Documents folder, usually, you've got access to things that have been shared with you, by you. So whether that's from a different organization, that someone just shared it directly out of their OneDrive to you, or whether they've shared it out of their SharePoint site and shared it with you, that'll appear there, which is really useful. So especially if you're a consultant and people have shared stuff with you, or you've been invited to other people's folders, rather than saving the link, actually you can get access to everything that you want in this location here. And that's really useful. It's just not a lot of people would think to go into OneDrive to go and do that. Similarly, you can star favorites, and that'll appear in each of the Office apps. So if you've got PowerPoint, if you starred some things, that'll appear at the top. If you're in Word and you starred some things, that'll appear at the top. And in OneDrive, it shows you all those things, and you can see whether you've favorited a folder, or Word, or Excel, or PowerPoint, or now PDFs, which is useful because Microsoft sort of had a ignoring PDFs moment of like, oh, PDFs don't really exist. We won't consider those when we do filters and open files and things for a little while. So it does get a bit confusing. Not a lot of people can get the nuances around that, which we've got another video on that can help. But for the OneDrive 3.0, they haven't really addressed that, I don't think. So people get confused about what's in my OneDrive versus what's in SharePoint. And Microsoft OneDrive in this web app is trying to be helpful because it's just showing you wherever you've got a file, assuming you've put it in the right place to start with the right permissions, then you can get back to it wherever it lives, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure about the information density about these 3 things that pops up at the top. In their video they had 4, but it seems however big you make the window, it doesn't show you any more than 3, which and it doesn't really tell you much in this little card thing. So it just said you edited it, you basically open this in another tenant where more people are working, it's got so-and-so edited this, but there's just not a lot of information on these cards. You could probably fit a lot more cards at the top. That was deemed that Microsoft think that's the best way for you to get access into these files, and it's thinking that that's the best thing for you to open right now. There just isn't a lot of information in there, and they could fit more on the screen, in my humble opinion. So one of the big things that Microsoft have said is coming to OneDrive 3.0, which, as we saw, coincidentally already available in Microsoft365.com, Office365.com, is that browsing files by people and meetings. So this can be quite useful to say, well, I just know that so-and-so shared a file with me. Then coming through into people, you can see what you shared with them and what they've shared with you. Again, the information density isn't amazing. So if I come into the top one, it's only got show me 2 files and then +1. So even though it's got this extra space here, it's not showing me that file. I've got to click on it and then it shows me all of the files to do with that person. And I can go through and filter the files and so on. Meetings, again, could be quite useful. This sounds quite cool. It's like trying to keep all the information together around a meeting. But then it's like, well, meetings, people would think about meetings in Outlook is usually the place where you go and sort your meetings out. And it doesn't show you this view. And if you click on the OneDrive app in the new Outlook, it just jumps you out into the OneDrive web app. So it seems like there could be more integration. Again, Microsoft could be more Apple, just be more integrated. If this is the view that you think is the most useful view, put it across all your ecosystem. Also, this doesn't really do what you want it to do, or in my opinion, doesn't do what you want it to do. So if I scroll down to this workshop that I ran, it's got the right date and it's in reverse chronological order, and you know, we can see that it's got the recording, which is cool. But I also shared a PowerPoint live in this meeting, and it's not pulled that out. So even if I click on the meeting, it's got the recording, doesn't have the PowerPoint that I shared in this meeting. So I didn't send it to anybody, but I did share it during the meeting, and that is obviously something that I would want to get back to, because I'm like, oh, where was that? Where did I see that PowerPoint slide? Ah, it was in this meeting. Well, now I can't get back to it. I can see that it's recorded the PowerPoint there in the recording, but like if I wanted to get back to it, I can't get back to it from here. Similarly, I pay for Microsoft Teams Premium with Intelligent Recap, and like I mentioned in the other video, I can't get the Intelligent Recap from anywhere in OneDrive or in Stream, which is annoying. Even though the recording and the transcript live here, the recap doesn't live in Stream, and I can't get access to it from OneDrive. So even though it's showing me meetings, it's not really helping me do what it's obvious that I want to do in the Microsoft ecosystem, which is annoying. If I click meetings, it doesn't go back, which is not great. So I have to click back to meetings, which was hidden under a pop-up. And so it looks like it could be cool, but actually all it's showing me is meetings right now. So if I had emails or shared files that it thinks that it's to do with a meeting, then it might put those in. But at the moment, it's not doing great. If I jump to this work-life balance one, it's got a +1. Again, the information density is not great, so I have to click +1 and jump out, and it's actually got two recordings, because this one went quite long, and it split the recording into two for me, which I didn't know it would do. And coincidentally, the Intelligent Recap, didn't work for this really important meeting for the entirety of this first meeting recording bit, which again, there's no way to regenerate, but that's a separate bugbear. So browsing by people and meetings is two of the new things in the new OneDrive. We still get quick access to our other SharePoint sites or teams. Again, I don't know anybody that goes through files to get access into SharePoint sites like this, but let me know if you do in the comments below. And even in this view, it's just not thinking like a normal person doing a normal job, I don't think. So in channels and in site library, it's like, well, I know what it means in there, but like for a normal person, it's like, well, why is it showing me two views of the same thing in the same screen? So obviously these three channels or folders overlap with some of the ones in here. So it does actually mean in the site library, so in the document library, the default document library in the SharePoint site that's set up when I set up this team, there's three channels, and those channels create top level folders. The private channel is actually a separate document library, and it's trying to be helpful because it's saying, well, these are in channels, but that one's actually in a separate document library, same as the shared channel in the background sets up a different document library in the same SharePoint site that's set up when you set the team up. And it's just like, well, there's just so much unneeded complexity that could be a lot simpler. Just pick one of these and just show that view, rather than having two drop down things in a document library, in the quick access, sorry, to a SharePoint site or a team. It's just like, it just doesn't need to be that complicated, I don't think, for most people. That said, you can get access to everything, and one of the things that Microsoft talk about in the new OneDrive 3.0 is that they've made sync a lot better. So you can still get this view and files even when you're not online, which I guess technically is pretty cool. But again, I don't know anyone that's going to go through this view to get access to things that are offline. They're probably just going to go through File Explorer because they've already synced it, or Finder if you're on a Mac. And then I'm surprised they didn't mention, which they have mentioned before, is that they are making sync better. So at the time of recording, there's two ways to sync stuff from a SharePoint site or a team. So there, if you've got stuff in your OneDrive, which is personal to you until you choose to share it, that's all synced usually automatically. If you've got stuff in a SharePoint site or a team, although it appears in here, you can't see it in Finder or File Explorer until you click sync. Now, apparently in the background, that's synced everything, or looked at everything to make changes. So technically, it created a lot of baggage, I guess, in terms of processing power or RAM or storage or however it works in the background. And then Microsoft added another thing, which is said add to OneDrive. So you can add a file or a folder from a SharePoint site into your OneDrive. So if we went through to testing, we can click sync, which should sync everything in that folder, happening to use the OneDrive app onto our computer, so we've got access to that offline, or we can just open it through File Explorer or Finder. Then we've got add shortcut to my files, which puts the folder into your OneDrive files, which I think's really confusing, because then some of your folders in your OneDrive will be ones that are in your OneDrive, and some of them will be links to other sites. So you're just really clouded. It's like, is that in mine? Are people have access to it or not? I'm not really sure if I put stuff in that folder. It just gets really confusing. However, as I understand it, if you do add to OneDrive, that is actually a better way of syncing technically in the background, because it uses less resources to go and sync that folder. So as I understood it, and Microsoft announced a while ago, that actually that was going to be the way that sync worked going into the future. So the sync button would disappear, and the add to OneDrive would be the only way to do it. I still think it's good to have just a top level thing. Say, look, all of this is your own OneDrive, and all of this is a SharePoint site that other people could see. That delineation seems to be a good idea for me. But if add to OneDrive is technically better, it's like, yeah, cool, I can see why you would move that over. But again, seems like Microsoft struggle with communicating all of that to a normal person doing a normal job. But it's a shame, I think, that a lot of people won't see this view about how to go and get access to their files, because I think actually being able to see all of your files across wherever they live and get access to them quite quickly, and be able to, filter them down quite quickly, either by person or meeting, or you can just filter here, is really powerful. Again, I'm not sure why Microsoft don't just combine Microsoft 365 Home, My Content, Feed into OneDrive, if either goes through OneDrive or goes through Microsoft 365. It seems like there's just way too many options for a normal person doing a normal job. It's like, where should I go and get access to the things that I need to work on today? And if you jump into Teams, then again, Microsoft have tried to make OneDrive be the Files app. So I think even that icon from their announcement is going to change to OneDrive rather than Files. But again, I don't know many people that even use the Files sidebar app in Teams to get access to their files. You just go through the team to get their files, or if they know they're in their OneDrive, they would go into File Explorer or Finder. And this one seemingly doesn't work, because before I started recording, this Home tab showed me everything the same as when I went into OneDrive. Now it's got a bug, so it's only showing me Excel files. Even if I take off these filters, it's only showing me a couple of files, which I'm not sure why it's doing that. My files have still got everything in there in my OneDrive, and I've still got access to my favorites. I don't have access to people or meetings, but I think that's coming when this files changes into OneDrive. But again, it's similar, but not exactly the same. And there's no Microsoft 365 feed app in Teams either, so that only lives in Windows app or desktop. there's just so many overlapping bits of functionality and UI elements. It just gets really confusing and starts to make you feel like you're going mad, because you go into one thing like, oh, I'm sure that looked like that before, and now it doesn't. Oh, actually that was OneDrive and it's changed. Oh no, it was the Microsoft 365.com bit, and that's slightly different with a slightly different UI. Or was it the Teams files bit? Well, actually I can't get the three cars at the top anymore, and actually, yeah, home doesn't show me everything. It just starts to make you think like you're going mad, because every time you go to something, it slightly changes or slightly different. And that's what I think Microsoft have got a great opportunity to fix. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you like the new OneDrive? If you do use the OneDrive web app, I'd be really curious to understand if you use that already, and let me know if you're in tech or if you've got a normal job, as I like to call it. And if you need help cutting through all of the complications of Microsoft and making Microsoft work for your organization to be more efficient, save time for well-being and increase sales, then book a call using the link in the description below, and we can have a chat, see if they were a good fit to work together. If you'd just like to see these videos coming out, we've got numerous ways that you can support the channel in the description below. And if not, if you just like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button and the bell icon if you haven't already. But thanks for watching so far. We'll see you in the next one.